What if one of the most important nutrients for your energy isn't something that gives you energy at all? Magnesium doesn't stimulate you like caffeine, and you don't necessarily feel it working. Yet every second of every day, your cells depend on magnesium to help produce and use the energy that keeps you alive. You've probably heard people recommend magnesium for sleep, muscle cramps, anxiety, constipation, headaches, exercise, or heart health. Walk into almost any health food store and you'll find an entire shelf filled with different kinds of magnesium. But that raises an interesting question. Why would one mineral have anything to do with so many completely different functions in the body? That's what I want to explore today. But I don't want to give you another list of 20 things magnesium is supposedly good for. I want to teach you how magnesium works. Because once you understand something called Mag-ATP, I think you're going to look at magnesium and cellular energy very differently. Welcome to the Lymph-Brain Revolution Podcast. I'm John Ossipinsky, known as LymphMan. For more than 30 years, I've been studying, treating, and teaching about the lymphatic system and how maintaining it can help mental and physical health. One of the biggest lessons I've learned during those years is that health rarely comes down to one organ, one nutrient, or one body system. Your brain depends on circulation. Your immune system works closely with your lymphatic system. Your muscles depend on your nervous system, and your cells depend on a continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients. They all depend on energy. Today, we're going to explore one mineral that plays a fundamental role in helping your cells create and use energy. It's all about your cells, magnesium. And we'll discover how magnesium supports many systems throughout your body, including the muscles, nerves, immune system, and processes that help support healthy lymphatic function. Before we begin, remember that this episode is educational. I'm not suggesting magnesium can diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent fatigue, anxiety, depression, heart disease, diabetes, or any other medical condition. Fatigue and many of the symptoms we'll discuss today can have numerous causes and should be properly evaluated when they're persistent or concerning. Magnesium supplements also aren't appropriate for everyone. So later in the episode, we'll talk about who needs to be especially careful with magnesium and why. Today, we're going to answer several important questions. What exactly is magnesium and why aren't so many Americans getting enough of it? What does magnesium have to do with the energy inside your cells? Why are researchers interested in magnesium for the brain, stress, sleep, muscles, heart, metabolism, and immune health? We'll also look at different forms of magnesium, including glycinate, citrate, oxide, chloride, malate, taurate, and L-threonate. Finally, we'll talk about food, supplements, how much magnesium you need, and who should talk with a healthcare professional before taking it. But everything we're going to discuss comes back to one central idea. Your cells need energy, and everything in your body is made up of cells. So let's begin. The word essential has a specific meaning in nutrition. Your body needs magnesium, but it cannot manufacture enough of it on its own. So you have to obtain it through your diet. Magnesium is involved in hundreds of processes throughout your body. It helps your cells produce energy, participates in normal nerve and muscle function, and it is involved in making proteins and DNA. It also contributes to bone health, blood pressure regulation, blood sugar control, and normal immune function. So magnesium isn't doing one job. It's helping your cells perform many of the jobs necessary to keep you functioning every day. A large portion of magnesium in your body is stored in your bones, while much of the rest is inside your muscles and other soft tissues. Your bones aren't just structural. They also serve as an important mineral reservoir. Only a small percentage of magnesium is circulating in your blood, and that becomes important later when we talk about testing for magnesium deficiency. Before we go any further, I want to give you a number that surprised me. According to the national dietary data cited by the National Institutes of Health, roughly half of Americans consume less magnesium from food and beverages than the estimated average requirement. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about a mineral involved in hundreds of processes throughout the body. including cellular energy production. Yet approximately half of us aren't consuming the estimated amount needed to meet average requirements. Now, that does not mean half of Americans have a clinical magnesium deficiency. That's an important distinction. It means a large part of the population isn't consistently getting the estimated amount of magnesium they need through food to support cellular health. So, why is that happening? One reason is the way we eat. Magnesium is naturally abundant in foods such as leafy green vegetables, beans, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. Now, think about the typical standard American diet. How many people eat leafy greens every day or regularly eat beans, pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, and whole grains? And how many of our meals now come from packages, restaurants, fast food restaurants, or highly processed foods? Food processing matters. Take whole grains as an example. When whole grains are refined to make white flour and many processed grain products, much of the bran and germ is removed. Those parts of the grain contain magnesium and many other nutrients, so we begin with a nutrient-rich food and remove some of those nutrients during processing. There are other reasons magnesium levels can become inadequate. Digestive disorders such as Crohn's disease and celiac diseases can interfere with magnesium absorption, while chronic diarrhea can increase magnesium loss. People with type 2 diabetes, particularly when blood sugar is poorly controlled, can also lose more magnesium through their urine. Certain medications can affect magnesium as well. Long-term use of proton pump inhibitors has been associated with low magnesium in some people. And certain diuretics can change how much magnesium the kidneys retain or excrete. There's another factor worth mentioning, especially today, and that's caffeine. Research has shown that caffeine can temporarily increase the amount of magnesium your kidneys excrete in the urine. That doesn't mean 1 cup of coffee is going to make you magnesium deficient, but the amount of caffeine matters. This becomes especially interesting when we look at people who consume several caffeinated drinks a day or regularly use high caffeine energy drinks, some as high as 200 milligrams per can. Think about the irony for a moment. Someone feels tired, so they reach for an energy drink containing a large amount of caffeine. The caffeine temporarily makes them feel more alert, but caffeine can also increase urinary magnesium loss, and magnesium is one of the minerals their cells need to produce and use energy through Mg-ATP. That doesn't mean energy drinks automatically cause magnesium deficiency. But if you're consuming a lot of caffeine and your diet is already low in magnesium-rich foods, it's another reason to pay attention to your magnesium intake. I would make sure you're regularly eating magnesium-rich foods. And depending on your diet, medications, kidney function, and overall health, it may also be worth discussing magnesium supplementation with your healthcare provider. Then there's aging. As we get older, several factors can come together. We can consume less magnesium. Intestinal absorption can change. Chronic health problems can become more common, and many people begin taking more medications. So for many people, inadequate magnesium isn't caused by one dramatic event. It's the result of several small factors adding up over years. Now the question becomes much more interesting. If your magnesium intake is low, what does that actually mean for your cells? To answer that, we have to talk about something I've seen throughout my career: fatigue. Over the past 30 years in my practice, clients may originally come to me because of chronic pain, cancer, brain fog, digestive problems, autoimmune conditions, swelling, anxiety, or any other health issue. But very often, somewhere in our conversation, I hear the same thing from clients: I'm always exhausted. Some people wake up tired. Others start the day feeling pretty good. But by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they feel like they've run out of energy. And some people tell me they can't remember the last time they woke up feeling truly refreshed. Now, fatigue can have many causes, including poor sleep, anemia, thyroid problems, chronic illness, medications, infections, depression, stress, and nutritional deficiencies. Now, I'm not suggesting that fatigue equals magnesium deficiency, but fatigue raises a fundamental question. Where does your energy actually come from? Every cell in your body requires energy. Your brain cells need energy to think and process information. Your heart cells need energy to contract. Your muscles need energy to move you, and your immune cells need energy to protect you. Your digestive system and kidneys require energy to perform their jobs. And even the cells involved in repairing damaged tissue need energy. A molecule called ATP provides much of that usable cellular energy. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, but you don't need to remember the full name. Just remember ATP. You've probably heard ATP described as the energy currency of the cell. And I like that description because it helps us understand what ATP does. You eat food, and your digestive system breaks that food down. Nutrients enter your circulation and eventually reach your cells, hopefully. Inside many of those cells are tiny structures called mitochondria, which you've probably heard described as the powerhouses of the cell. Your mitochondria help convert energy from the food you eat into ATP that your cells can actually use. But here's something most people don't know. ATP commonly works together with magnesium. Magnesium binds with ATP to form Mag-ATP. And Mag-ATP is a form used by many of the cellular reactions that require energy. This is one reason magnesium is so fundamental to health. Magnesium doesn't give you energy the way a stimulant does. Instead, it helps your cells produce and use the energy they already make. Imagine you're holding a fully charged battery. There is energy stored inside that battery, but if it can't properly connect to the device, that stored energy isn't very useful. That's one way to think about magnesium and ATP. ATP contains usable chemical energy, while magnesium helps ATP interact with many of the cellular processes that need that energy. That's why I want you to remember these 5 letters from today's episode: Mg-ATP. Once you understand Mag-ATP, magnesium stops looking like just another supplement sitting on a store shelf. It becomes part of the basic machinery your cells depend on every day. And remember, everything in your body is made up of cells. Magnesium also participates in the processes your mitochondria use to make ATP. So magnesium is involved in both sides of the energy equation. It helps support ATP production, and then it helps ATP perform its work. Now let's connect that back to fatigue. If magnesium intake is inadequate, some of the cellular reactions involved in energy production and energy use can become less efficient. That doesn't mean taking magnesium automatically fixes fatigue, but it gives us a mechanism for understanding why magnesium status matters when we think about cellular energy. And here's the bigger question. If every cell needs Mag-ATP, what happens in an organ that consumes an enormous amount of energy? Your brain gives us a fascinating example. Your brain is incredibly hungry for energy. Even when you're sitting quietly, your brain is processing enormous amounts of information. You're seeing and hearing what's around you, remembering, planning, regulating your breathing, controlling movement, and responding to your environment. Underneath all that activity are billions of nerve cells that require a continuous supply of energy. So magnesium's relationship with the brain begins with the same thing we've already learned, Mag-ATP. But magnesium also plays another important role because it helps regulate nerve activity. Your nervous system is constantly balancing signals that stimulate nerve cells with signals that help quiet them, and you need both. If your nervous system couldn't become activated, you couldn't think, move, react, learn, or protect yourself. But you also don't want your nerve cells firing excessively all the time. When nerve cells become overly active and keep firing too rapidly, researchers call this hyperexcitability. Instead of normal, controlled nerve signaling, the nervous system can become overstimulated. That excessive activity can interfere with normal function and, depending on where it's occurring, can contribute to symptoms such as burning, tingling, abnormal sensations, or even seizures. If that excessive activity continues too long, it can also place stress on nerve cells and potentially contribute to cellular damage. Your nervous system needs balance. Researchers are particularly interested in magnesium because it helps regulate a signaling system involving N-methyl deaspartate receptor, also known as the NMDA receptor. NMDA receptors respond to glutamate, one of the brain's primary excitatory neurotransmitters. You don't need to remember those names, but what's important is that this system helps regulate nerve cell activity involving learning, memory, and the brain's response to stimulation. Magnesium helps regulate that activity. I think of it like traffic moving through a busy intersection. You need traffic moving through the intersection because if you stop every car, the city doesn't function. But if everyone gets a green light at the same time, the intersection becomes chaotic. Magnesium is one of the factors helping regulate that traffic. Your brain also has systems that calm nerve activity, and one of the important chemical messengers involved in that process is called GABA. GABA is one of the brain's important calming chemical messengers. It helps keep nerve cells from becoming excessively active. Researchers continue studying how magnesium influences the balance between stimulating and calming signals in the nervous system. And that's one reason magnesium keeps appearing in research involving stress, anxiety, depression, migraine, sleep, and cognitive health. It's not because magnesium is a cure for those conditions. It's because magnesium participates in some of the fundamental systems those conditions involve. Think about stress. Your body has a stress response system designed to protect you. When you're threatened, your brain and nervous system increase alertness and prepare the body to respond. That's a wonderful survival system. But today, many people are running from a physical threat. They're sitting in traffic, answering emails, worrying about money, caring for family members, or scrolling through bad news before bed. That stress response can remain activated for hours. Researchers are interested in magnesium because it interacts with parts of the nervous system and hormonal systems involved in responding to stress. Again, this doesn't mean taking magnesium makes stress disappear. It means magnesium is one nutrient required for the normal physiology of the nervous system. Sleep is another area where research is growing. Studies of magnesium in sleep haven't all produced the same results. But recent research on magnesium bisglycinate has found modest improvements in insomnia symptoms in some people. And that brings us to glycine. Magnesium glycinate or magnesium bisglycinate is magnesium attached to the amino acid glycine. Glycine is interesting because your body uses it for several different purposes. It's an important component of collagen, one of the building blocks your body uses to produce glutathione, and it also participates in nervous system signaling. Researchers have studied glycine separately for sleep quality and next day alertness. That doesn't mean the glycine and magnesium glycinate automatically gives you all the benefits seen in the studies using larger amounts of glycine. But it does make magnesium glycinate an interesting form because you're combining magnesium, which supports energy production and nerve function, with an amino acid that has important functions of its own. That's one reason magnesium glycinate has become one of the forms I find particularly interesting. Now let's move from the brain to something you can actually feel happening every day. Muscle movement. Every time you move your body, your muscles have to contract and relax. Standing up, walking, taking a deep breath, and even maintaining your posture require muscle activity. And every one of those muscle cells need energy. So what do we come back to again? Mag-ATP. Magnesium also works with calcium and other minerals to help regulate normal muscle contraction and relaxation. That's one reason magnesium has been studied in relation to exercise, muscle function, cramps, fatigue, and recovery. But I want to make an important distinction. If you get a leg cramp tonight, that doesn't automatically mean you're magnesium deficient because muscle cramps can have many different causes. The important lesson is that magnesium is part of the normal physiology that allows muscles to produce energy, contract, and relax. Now, here's where this connects beautifully to the lymphatic system. When your muscles move, they also help support lymph movement. Your lymphatic system doesn't have one large central pump like your cardiovascular system has the heart. Lymphatic vessels have their own ability to contract, but muscle movement, breathing, and pressure changes also help move lymph through the body. There's another connection to the lymphatic system that I find interesting. Magnesium doesn't just help muscles contract, it also participates in the processes that allow muscles to relax. Magnesium and calcium work together in regulating muscle activity, and magnesium can help reduce excessive smooth muscle contraction. Why could that matter for lymph flow? Lymphatic vessels themselves contain specialized spiral muscle cells that rhythmically contract and relax to help propel lymph forward when they are activated. Lymph flow is also influenced by the movement of the muscles and tissues surrounding those vessels. So when we talk about healthy lymph flow, we don't want tissues that are constantly tense and constricted. We want healthy movement, contraction, and relaxation in the tissues and muscles. Magnesium helps support normal muscle function and relaxation, which could indirectly help create better conditions for lymph movement. We don't yet have research showing that magnesium supplementation itself directly increases lymph flow, but physiologically, this is an interesting connection. This is also one reason movement is so important. When you do something as simple as the LymphMan shoulder shuffle, your muscles contract and relax, creating movement around the major lymphatic vessels right behind your clavicles, right by the subclavian vein. This is where all the lymph in the body, where thousands of lymph vessels have to bring their fluid to, and hundreds of lymph nodes. That's one reason I teach the LymphMan shoulder shuffle. You move your shoulders straight up and down in a comfortable rhythm without forcing the movement. Put your hands on your lap. Put one shoulder straight up, the other one goes down, and then we reverse it. Just up and down. Just alternating your shoulders up and down. I'm doing that very gently and already I have tingles in the back of my neck, my spine, my low back, and my legs. This is a powerful system that if you did 20 or 30 repetitions a day, 2 or 3 times throughout the day, you will start feeling more open and flowing. You can do it very slow at first. If you have any pain or surgery, check with your healthcare practitioner. But I'm just moving my shoulders very gently up and down, and I'm feeling tingling in the back of my neck, my spine, my low back, and my legs. This LymphMan shoulder shuffle is powerful in its ability to open up whole body lymph flow. That's why we need to do it a few times a day. After doing the shoulder shuffle, you may notice a difference in how your body feels. Some people tell me they notice tingling or other sensations afterwards. Your shoulder muscles require Mg-ATP to perform that movement, and that movement can help support lymph flow through an area where major lymphatic vessels eventually return lymphatic fluid to the venous circulation. I think that's a wonderful example of different systems working together. Magnesium supports normal muscle function, the muscles create movement, and that movement helps support circulation and lymph flow. Now think about one muscle that never gets much of a break, your heart. Your heart contracts roughly 100,000 times in a typical day, and every one of those contractions requires energy along with carefully regulated electrical activity. Magnesium participates in both. It helps support normal heart rhythm, muscle function, and blood vessel regulation. Research on magnesium supplementation and blood pressure has found modest reductions in blood pressure in some populations, particularly among people with hypertension or lower magnesium status. And modest is the important word. We're not talking about replacing blood pressure medication with magnesium. We're understanding why magnesium belongs in the cardiovascular conversation. Then there's blood sugar. Magnesium participates in the processes your cells use to respond to insulin and handle glucose. At the same time, people with poorly controlled type 2 diabetes can lose more magnesium through their urine. So there's an interesting two-way relationship. Magnesium participates in glucose metabolism, while metabolic problems can contribute to increased magnesium loss. Clinical trials of magnesium supplementation for insulin resistance have produced mixed results. And that's important because it reminds us of something I say frequently. A nutrient can be essential to a biological process without that nutrient becoming a treatment for every disease involving that process. That's an important distinction to remember throughout this entire episode. Now, think about what we've covered so far. We've talked about your brain and nervous system, your muscles and heart, your blood vessels, and even your metabolism. At first, those sound like completely different subjects, but there's a common thread running through all of them. They're all made up of cells, and every one of those cells needs energy. That's why magnesium seems to show up everywhere. We're not really talking about 10 unrelated magnesium benefits. We're talking about one fundamental mineral participating in cellular energy and regulation throughout the body. And that brings us to another group of cells that can require enormous amounts of energy when they're activated: your immune cells. Before we continue, if something you're hearing today is helping you look at your health differently, that's exactly why I created this podcast. For more than 30 years, I've helped people understand the lymphatic system and how it works together with the rest of the body through education, coaching, and lymphatic work. I also teach online courses where we go much deeper into how you can maintain your lymphatic system and support your health in practical ways every day. You can learn more at healthylymphsystem.com. My goal isn't to give you another quick fix. It's to help you understand how your body works so you can make better decisions about your health. Now let's continue because magnesium gives us another fascinating connection between cellular energy, immunity, and the lymphatic system. Your immune system isn't one organ. It's a network of cells, tissues, organs, chemical signals, blood vessels, and lymphatic vessels working together. And immune cells can be incredibly active. When an immune cell recognizes a threat, it can rapidly change its activity. It may move through tissues, release chemical signals, interact with other immune cells, or begin multiplying when the body needs more of those cells. All of that requires energy. And once again, that brings us back to magnesium ATP. Research also shows that magnesium participates in normal immune cell activity and helps influence inflammatory regulation. And many of our diseases are about inflammation. When magnesium levels are inadequate, research suggests that some inflammatory responses can become more active. We could spend 20 minutes talking about T cells, macrophages, cytokines, and molecular pathways, but I don't think we need to. The mechanism is what matters. Immune cells need energy and appropriate signaling. They need to become activated when they're needed, communicate with other immune cells, and then regulate that response when the threat is past. Magnesium helps support those normal cellular processes. Now consider where many important immune interactions take place. Your lymph nodes. Lymph nodes aren't just filters. They're highly active immune structures where immune cells encounter information about what's happening in different parts of your body. Your lymphatic vessels transport lymph fluid, proteins, immune cells, and other material through your tissues and toward those nodes. Eventually, much of that fluid is returned to your bloodstream. So magnesium and the lymphatic system aren't doing the same job. They're supporting different parts of the same biological network. Magnesium helps cells produce and use energy, while the lymphatic system helps manage tissue fluid, transport immune cells, and support immune surveillance and return fluid and proteins to the circulation. At the same time, the cardiovascular system delivers oxygen and nutrients. The digestive system absorbs those nutrients. The kidneys help maintain mineral balance, and your muscles create movement. That's how I want you to think about health. not as a collection of isolated organs, but as an interconnected system. And one of the easiest ways to provide that system with magnesium is sitting right on your dinner plate. After everything I've told you about magnesium, you might be expecting me to say that everyone should go out and buy a magnesium supplement. I'm not. Before we talk about supplements, let's talk about food. If you're eating the standard American diet, you may not be getting a lot of magnesium. Some of the best natural sources of magnesium are foods many people simply aren't eating enough of, including pumpkin and chia seeds, almonds, cashews, black beans, edamame, and whole grains. Leafy green vegetables are particularly interesting because magnesium sits at the center of the chlorophyll molecule that helps plants capture energy from sunlight. I love that connection. The green pigment that helps a plant capture energy contains magnesium. And then we eat those green plants and use magnesium as part of our own cellular energy system. That's pretty remarkable when you think about it. When you get magnesium from whole foods, you're also getting much more than magnesium. Nuts and seeds provide magnesium along with healthy fats, protein, fiber, minerals, and other nutrients. Beans provide magnesium along with fiber, potassium, plant protein, and many other beneficial compounds, while leafy greens give us magnesium as part of an entire package of nutrients. That's one reason I like the food first approach. Nature rarely gives us one isolated nutrient, it gives us a package. Now, there are times when supplements can make sense. Someone may not be getting enough magnesium through food, may have increased losses, or a healthcare provider may identify a reason for supplementation. Someone may also choose a particular magnesium form for a specific purpose. And that's where things can get confusing, because when you walk into a supplement aisle, there isn't just one magnesium, there are many. So let's make sense of them. One of the most common questions about magnesium is which form is best? And my first response would be best for what? Different magnesium supplements combine magnesium with different compounds, and those combinations can affect how well the magnesium is absorbed, how much elemental magnesium you're actually getting, and how the supplement affects your digestive system. So rather than trying to memorize every form, let's start with three you're likely to see most often: magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, and magnesium glycinate. Let's begin with magnesium oxide. You'll find magnesium oxide in many inexpensive supplements. It contains a relatively high percentage of elemental magnesium by weight, which can make the amount listed on the bottle look impressive. But there's a catch. Magnesium oxide isn't particularly well absorbed. A classic study comparing different forms of magnesium found that fractional absorption from magnesium oxide was only around 4% under the conditions of that study. That doesn't mean every person absorbs exactly 4% because absorption varies. But magnesium oxide has consistently shown lower bioavailability than several other forms. So why would someone use it? One reason is constipation. Because more magnesium oxide can remain in the intestine, it can draw water into the bowel and have a laxative effect. So magnesium oxide isn't necessarily a bad form of magnesium. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If your main goal is increasing magnesium intake, however, there are generally better absorbed choices. That brings us to magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate is better absorbed than magnesium oxide and is commonly used as a general magnesium supplement. But citrate can also loosen the bowels. For someone who struggles with constipation, that might actually be helpful, while someone who already had loose stools or diarrhea might want to consider another form. Then there's magnesium glycinate, also called magnesium bisglycinate. As we discussed earlier, this magnesium attached to the amino acid glycine. This form is generally well tolerated and tends to have less of a laxative effect for many people. I also like the fact that glycine has important functions of its own. It contributes to collagen, is involved in glutathione production, and participates in nervous system function. That doesn't mean magnesium glycinate is automatically the best form for everyone. but it's one of the forms I personally find particularly interesting and use. Now, those are three of the major forms you're likely to encounter, and they're certainly not the only ones. Magnesium chloride is another relatively well-absorbed form that can be used for general magnesium supplementation. Magnesium lactate and magnesium aspartate have also demonstrated better bioavailability than magnesium oxide. You don't hear about these forms quite as often, but they're additional options. Then there's magnesium malate, which combines magnesium with malic acid, a compound involved in normal energy metabolism. That's an interesting connection considering everything we've learned today about magnesium and cellular energy. But I wouldn't tell someone that magnesium malate has been proven to fix fatigue because we don't have that kind of evidence. Magnesium taurate combines magnesium with taurine. Taurine has roles in cardiovascular and nervous system physiology, which is why you'll sometimes see this form marketed for heart health. But we need stronger comparative research before calling it the best magnesium for the heart. And then there's magnesium L-threonate. This form has received a lot of attention because researchers are studying it in relation to magnesium levels in the brain, memory, and cognition. It's an interesting area of research, but L-threonate is generally more expensive, and we're still learning whether it offers meaningful advantages over other forms for most people. Finally, there's magnesium sulfate, which you probably know by another name, Epsom salt. Many people use Epsom salt baths or foot soaks to help relax tight muscles, reduce soreness, ease stress, and create a deep sense of relaxation. I'm deliberately not going deeply into magnesium sulfate today because I want to dedicate a future episode to Epsom salt, therapeutic bathing, and what we actually know about magnesium absorption through the skin. That's a completely different conversation. So after hearing all of those names, I don't want you trying to memorize them. Remember the three forms we spent the most time discussing: oxide, citrate, and glycinate. And when you're standing in front of a shelf of magnesium supplements feeling confused, don't ask only which magnesium is best. Ask, what am I trying to accomplish and which form makes sense to me? Then consider your diet, digestive system, medications, kidney function, and medical history. Magnesium can be useful, but choosing the right form and using an appropriate amount is more important than simply buying whichever bottle has the biggest number on the label. Let's finish the practical part of this episode with three questions. How much magnesium do you need? How do you know whether you're getting enough? And who should be careful with magnesium supplements? According to the National Institutes of Health, adult men generally need about 400 to 420 milligrams of magnesium per day, while adult women generally need around 310 to 320 milligrams per day. Requirements can change during pregnancy and at different stages of life. But here's where people can get confused. The recommended daily amount of magnesium is not the same as the upper limit for magnesium supplements. For adults, the tolerable upper intake level for magnesium from supplements and medications is 350 milligrams per day, unless a healthcare professional recommends otherwise. That 350 milligram limit does not include magnesium naturally present in food. That's an important distinction, and it means you don't have to stop eating leafy greens because you've reached 350 milligrams of magnesium for the day. The limit applies to supplemental and medication sources because larger supplemental amounts can cause gastrointestinal problems. The most common signs that you've taken too much supplemental magnesium include diarrhea, abdominal cramping, and nausea. But there is a more serious concern. Your kidneys remove excess magnesium from your body. So if your kidney function is significantly impaired, magnesium can accumulate. Very high blood magnesium levels can become dangerous. So if you have kidney disease, don't start taking large amounts of magnesium on your own. Talk with your healthcare provider about what's appropriate for you. Magnesium can also interact with medications. It can interfere with the absorption of certain antibiotics if they're taken too close together. And it can interfere with some osteoporosis medications. You should generally take magnesium supplements at least 2 to 4 hours apart from other medications. Because the timing depends on the medication, ask your physician or pharmacist how far apart your magnesium supplement and medications should be taken. Certain diuretics can alter magnesium levels, while long-term use of some proton pump inhibitors has been associated with low magnesium. So if you're taking prescription medications, particularly multiple medications, talk with your physician or pharmacist before adding a magnesium supplement. Now, what about symptoms? Can you tell when you're magnesium deficient? Severe magnesium deficiency can cause weakness, muscle cramps, tremors, abnormal heart rhythms, and neurological symptoms. But mild magnesium inadequacy can be much harder to recognize. Fatigue and muscle symptoms can occur, but those symptoms can also be caused by many other things. That's why I don't want you diagnosing yourself based on a list you found online. And there's another complication that takes us back to something we discussed at the beginning of the episode. Only a very small amount of the body's magnesium is circulating in your blood. Most magnesium is stored in bone and inside your cells and tissues. Your body also works hard to maintain blood magnesium within a relatively narrow range. So a normal serum magnesium test doesn't necessarily tell us everything about your total body magnesium status. Blood testing still has value, but it has to be interpreted in context alongside your diet, digestive health, medications, kidney function, medical conditions, symptoms, and other laboratory findings when appropriate. That's a much better way to think about magnesium than simply assuming everyone needs a supplement. Before we get to today's key takeaways, I want to give you a few simple things you can start doing today to support healthy magnesium levels and help your body use the energy magnesium helps create. First, look at your food. Try adding one magnesium-rich food to your day, such as leafy greens. A salad before a meal goes a long way. Pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, beans, or whole grains. You don't have to completely change your diet overnight. Start by adding something your body needs. Second, pay attention to your posture. Let's sit up straight. Put your head back, shoulders up. If you've been slouching, you probably can feel a difference. Doesn't that feel different? I mean, my legs are tingling and I just straightened up and I wasn't slouching that much. So pay attention to your posture. Sitting or standing in a more open, upright position gives your chest, shoulders, and diaphragm more freedom to move, which can support breathing, circulation, and lymph movement. Third, move your body every day, not just 3 times a week or a few times a week. Walk, stretch, exercise, or simply get up and move more often. Your muscles use Mg-ATP every time they contract and relax, and movement also helps support circulation and lymph flow. Fourth, take a few moments daily for relaxed, deep diaphragmatic breathing. Let your diaphragm move as you breathe deeply and comfortably. That movement changes pressure within your chest and abdomen and helps support the movement of lymphatic fluid. And what we do is we just take a deep breath in and blow it out with force. Deep breath in and blow it out with force. I mean, you can feel that through your body. I'm getting itchy around my nose. I'm feeling tingling in my low back and my legs and in my face just by taking a few deep breaths. And 5, do the LymphMan shoulder shuffle. Move your shoulders by alternating them straight up and down 20 or 30 times, 2 or 3 times a day throughout the day. This directly opens up whole body lymph flow and you should be able to feel it. You're activating muscles around an area around your clavicles where major lymphatic vessels eventually return lymphatic fluid to your circulation to improve whole body lymph flow. So remember, eat magnesium-rich foods, move your body, breathe deeply, and keep your lymphatic system flowing. You don't have to do everything perfectly. Small things you do consistently can make a meaningful difference in how you support your body and your cells. We've covered a lot today, so I want to leave you with 5 simple ideas. Number 1, remember magnesium ATP. ATP provides usable energy to your cells, and magnesium helps ATP perform many of its jobs. That's one of the fundamental reasons magnesium influences so many different parts of your health. Number two, magnesium isn't just about muscles. Your brain, heart, nerves, immune cells, blood and lymph vessels, metabolism, bones, and many other tissues depend on magnesium. Those tissues perform very different jobs, but they're all made up of cells that need energy. Number three, many Americans aren't getting enough magnesium from food. That doesn't mean half of America is clinically magnesium deficient. It means we have an opportunity to improve our magnesium intake by eating more leafy greens, beans, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. Number four, not all magnesium supplements are the same. Magnesium oxide is poorly absorbed compared with several other forms, while citrate is better absorbed but can loosen the bowels. Magnesium glycinate is generally well tolerated and contains the amino acid glycine, while other forms have different characteristics that can make them useful in different situations. 5. More magnesium isn't always better. Magnesium can interact with medications, and people with impaired kidney function need to be especially careful. The goal isn't to take as much magnesium as possible. The goal is to make sure your body has what it needs and to use supplements intelligently when they're appropriate. I started today's episode by talking about fatigue because it's something I've seen over and over again during more than 30 years of working with clients. When we're exhausted, our first question is usually, how do I get more energy? Maybe a better question is, what do my cells need to produce and use energy properly? Magnesium gives us a fascinating example. Because of its role in Mg-ATP and hundreds of other cellular processes, this one mineral helps support the energy your brain, nerves, muscles, heart, immune system, and other tissues need to do their jobs. Those cells also depend on systems like the lymphatic system to help manage tissue fluid, support immune activity, and transport substances through the body and assist with clearing cellular waste. Even the movement that helps support lymph flow depends on muscle cells having the energy to contract and relax. That's why I don't want you leaving today's episode thinking, I need to buy magnesium. I want you leaving today's episode thinking, now I understand why my body needs magnesium. Because health isn't created by one supplement, one nutrient, or one body system. It's created through trillions of cells and multiple systems working together every second of your life. The more we understand what those cells and systems need, the better decisions we can make to support our health. And never underestimate your body's remarkable ability to maintain balance when you give it the right support. If you'd like to continue learning about the lymphatic system, brain health, new research, and practical ways to support your health, follow me on Instagram at LymphMan. I share new research, practical health tips, lymphatic education, and I show you how to do the LymphMan shoulder shuffle almost every day and some other techniques. And I'd love to hear about your experience with magnesium. Do you take magnesium? And if you do, which form do you use? Have you noticed any differences in your sleep, energy, muscles, or how you feel? Let me know on Instagram at LymphMan. For the research references from today's episode, visit healthylymphsystem.com. While you're there, download my free lymphatic health guide and 7-day plan to improve lymph flow. You'll also find information about my online courses, coaching, and other ways to work with me. If you have a question or an idea you'd like me to explore in a future episode, you can reach me through the contact page at healthylymphsystem.com. This podcast is designed to help you better understand how magnesium and many systems in your body and brain work together to create health, including the important role of the lymphatic system. It is intended for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your personal medical concerns. If this episode helped you better understand how magnesium supports cellular energy and how that connects with your body, brain, and lymphatic health, please share it with someone who could benefit. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Thank you for listening to the Lymph-Brain Revolution Podcast. I'm John Ossipinsky, LymphMan, changing world health one lymphatic system at a time. Until we meet again next week, where we'll continue exploring the science behind health, healing, and the remarkable role of the lymphatic system, keep flowing.